episode of Women In. I can't wait for you to meet my next guest. But before we do that, let me tell you what you're listening to. Women In is a podcast that celebrates women from all walks of life and the people who uplift them. Each episode features incredible voices from my world, sharing stories that spark inspiration, challenge the status quo, and remind us that empowering women empowers everyone. This is a bold, curious, and uncensored space where disruption is welcome, forward thinking is encouraged, and change is the goal. I'm passionate about breaking down barriers, not just for us, but for the next generation. Whether our paths cross through the Kalamazoo Wings, Mindfulness Elevated, Tony Will Coaching, or you happen to be in my family and friends circle, these conversations matter. Let's dive in and celebrate the power of connection, growth, and the people who are shaping our world. And here is another fabulous woman shaping our world, Dawn Renshaw. Dawn is the CEO and founder of Stony Creek Social Media, a full-service marketing agency helping businesses connect authentically with their audiences since 2009. Known for her expertise in social media strategy, local SEO, and digital storytelling, Dawn is passionate about driving measurable growth while building lasting client relationships. Hi, Dawn.
Hi, Tony.
How are you? It's so cool to have you.
I am well. I know. We have been connected forever, it feels like. And yeah, this is fun. I've been looking forward to it.
Let's start back there. So I always ask the same first question of the podcast, and then it goes wherever my bionic hamster brain goes. But tell everyone how we met.
I had just started actually even thinking about my company, and I got invited to a lunch meeting, a networking meeting, and Tony happened to be there in a former career, and we met, and I joined the chamber, and yeah, that was a long time ago.
It was. That was back when I was leading the efforts in the Chamber of Commerce, and I remember meeting you, and we were at Grand Traverse Pie Company, I believe.
We were. Yeah.
And I remember you were wanting to start this business, and I'm like, yeah, you should. and here you are, 16 years later, right?
Yeah.
So,
and gosh, I look back at that young girl and I'm like, what were you thinking? Because I really thought it was just going to be kind of a little hobby. Mm-hmm. I never really ever dreamed that I would have, full-time employees, and yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Yeah, what would you tell 16 years ago, Dawn, now that you have this, what you just said, this thriving social media business with full-time employees? What would you tell her?
One, I would tell her that she's going to have to get thick skin, that she's going to have to be tenacious, and not to, and this is probably going to make a few people ruffle a few feathers, Tony, but not to let men push her around.
Yeah, well, that's what in the intro, you hear this. We're all about, disruption and uncensored, and So,
and I don't mean any disrespect to men, because I would say 90% of them are really good. But I have been in meetings. I've gotten there, and I have an employee who's half my age, and we've walked in, and they've assumed that he was the business owner.
You know what's really interesting? This week, we were doing some interviews for some sales interns at the K-Wings, and I said I want to sit in on them. I just want to sit in as Tony, who's in sales, because it was more about, I don't want people to change who they are because the GM is sitting there. But all three interns had no clue who I was, which was great. I'm playing my role well. But they thought the boss was a gentleman on my staff. And it made me chuckle. I was just like, how interesting. And when they are hired, like when they come in,
they're going to find out. It's going to be like that Undercover Boss, that show. Kind of, have you seen that show?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's going to be.
Yeah, and they were all great, but they didn't do their research, is my point. So it's similar. Like if they had done their research on Stony Creek Social Media, they would have seen who owns Stony Creek Social Media.
Creek Social Media, right. That almost reminds me of the funny story. My husband asked Bill how he was affiliated with the K-Wings. I told you that story where
Yes.
I went to go get my free hockey stick, and you guys had been out on the ice, but my husband wasn't paying attention. And when I come back, my husband's like, "Do you know who the guy behind us is?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why?" And he goes, "Well, I just asked him how he was affiliated with the K-Wings." And Bill was very gracious and told him, and everything like that. He was so nice about it. But yeah, it was the same thing. But yeah, and it's happened actually more times than I would care to elaborate on.
Yeah.
Where people have thought, and and then I've also been on committees. I've been in different situations where it's kind of like, yeah, like, why is she here?
Yes.
How do
you overcome that? What is your strategy in showcasing who you are and your talents and what you bring to an organization or to a sales pitch? And when someone looks at you and is like, "Oh, she doesn't deserve a seat at this table," or that she's not in charge. How do you work through that?
I almost become another person, and it's kind of funny that you say that, because it's like, of course, I sit up a little higher and I get a little more like, my hands, I talk with my hands, and like almost like kind of ignore them. And like I said, I talk a little louder. I get, the attention, which is not my personality. You know me well enough to know that, but I'm going to let people know that I am there and I'm not going anywhere. So I think that as women, sometimes in that situation, because I've owned one business or another for over 30 years. So before I was in marketing, one of the positions I had was I was an insurance agent, and it's the same thing. I was in an office one day, and a guy came in and handed me this check. He goes, "Here, get me a receipt, sweetie." And I said, "Oh, I'm an agent in another office. I can't take. You'll have to give it to the receptionist." And when I told him I was an agent in another office, he looked at me like I had three heads. He was like, "What?" And so that's one thing that I tell women when I mentor. Quite a few young ladies have come to me for mentoring, and I just tell them, it's like, you sit up, you put your shoulders back, you make your voice a little deeper, and you just own it. You have to.
Yes, I totally agree. It's kind of like you got to go into that alpha side of ourselves, or
Oh yeah.
and I believe that regardless of gender, we both carry masculine and feminine energies, and I have to tap into that. It's interesting. I've had people come up to me at hockey games, and when I'm when I'm at the opponents and I'm wearing K-Wings gear, and I think they'll come up to me and say, "Are you, which one of the boys is yours?" Playing on the ice. They think I'm a mom. And I'm like, well, they're all my proverbial sons.
Yeah,
and
they're all mine.
Say that because you were at my TEDx.
Yeah.
But that stuff happens.
Right.
And we have to find ways to navigate through that.
Yeah, and I've learned it used to really upset me and offend me. And then I just realized this is a culture that has been created years after years after years. One person that I think I got kind of the spirit from is Jackie Jennings Carter.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she told me the story about when she wanted to join Rotary before it was okay for women to join Rotary. And she told me about someone that we both knew I used to work for that said, really kind of tried to put her in her place. And if anybody knows Jackie Jennings Carter, she doesn't get put in her place. And so I learned a lot of things from her, too, about, it's just, you just can't give them any footing at all. And I'm never disrespectful, but I'm also not going to back down.
Yeah. Now, talk to me about your social media business and entrepreneurship. You've been in entrepreneurship in one way, shape, or form, you said, your whole career. So what pulled you in that direction? And then how did you land on social media 16 years ago? Because it was really kind of coming of age at that point.
Right. Yeah. My kids always used to tell people, it's like, my mom does social media, and she did it, before it was cool. And but it's I went through a divorce, and my oldest son was on the autism spectrum, and it was like some days he would go to school for an hour, some days he'd go to school all day, and it was just one of those things where it would have been hard for me to have a 9-to-5 job. And then when I went through the divorce, it was something where I had to bring in income. And so that's one of the businesses I started, was a daycare center. And I had that for about 8 years. And if anybody, business, that one's tough because, you've taken care of the kids and then managing the finances. And I always joke and say the only reason I got out of daycare was the parents. The kids I loved. It was the parents I couldn't handle.
I was going to say the hardest part's probably the parents.
It was. And, then I transitioned out of that, and I was doing mortgage processing. Well, that was like 2006, 2007. Well, we know what happened in 2008.
We do.
And so I had a short stint as an insurance agent. And then I had a family emergency, and I had to move back to Coldwater, and there was no room for my agency in Coldwater. There was already 2 of the largest agents in Michigan were in Coldwater. And so a really good friend of mine told me, he says, Dawn, just take a year and, get a job at Macy's, slinging perfume or whatever, just so you don't deplete your savings account, but just kind of figure out. And so that same couple, the guy and his wife, had bought a house like 10 years before that. I don't even know if I tell this story and then I forget about even telling it, but and so they had bought a house, and so they hired me to go through and get, repaint, re-landscape, redesign, everything. So it took me a year to do this house. Well, in the meantime, people were like, oh, she does that. So I turned it into what I called a personal and professional concierge business. And so I would send out a calendar to you, Tony, and I would say, okay, in September, how many hours do you want? And you'd say, okay, I want 8 hours. And then I would send you an invoice. You would pay for those 8 hours. And then I would send you a calendar link, and you'd pick out what 8 hours you wanted me to come to your house or your office or whatever. And then I would send it to all my clients. Well, then I started getting booked like 80 hours a week, and it was just me. And so I was trying to find people. It was really hard for me to find people to understand that I didn't always know what I was going to do. Like I had one lady that I took everything out of her ginormous kitchen and reorganized it and put it all back. I had one busy executive that I would go in and redo her closet, take it from like spring to fall, and she would travel a lot, and she wore black pants with everything. And so sometimes she would have 75, 80 pair of black pants. And so I would weed out the good ones. Oh, I know, it was funny. We always joke is that she'd be somewhere and she'd spill something, so she'd go buy a pair of black pants. But it was so much fun. I loved it. I still wish that I could think about franchising it. Could you imagine in Florida and Arizona?
Oh.
I mean, sometimes one lady had 150 Christmas trees that she put up every Christmas.
Oh, and this was one of your clients?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh,
and
wow.
I loved it, but I was getting to the point physically where it was hard, especially not being able to find anyone to help me. And then the original client that I went to, they did their house, he is a website developer. And so he had went to a conference and they talked about social media, and he came back because he knew when I would be at their house on break, I was always on social media because I loved it. And so he's like, there's this social media thing. And so I started taking some classes, and then I went to the Women's Expo, and I got one client, and that client turned into 3 and 6 and 9 and 12. And right now we're, with my staff and everything, we're about 70 clients that we have.
Okay, so I got to add, look, first off, I love that story. That is such
Isn't that fun?
a cool story. And you clearly are a creative mind because you're like, I'll turn this into a business. I'll turn that into a business. And like following the breadcrumbs is what I call this. But 70 social media clients. I have 3 accounts. I barely can handle the 3 I have. How the heck do you and your team keep all this straight?
Well, it's funny because that's 70 clients. So as far as accounts, we have over 300 accounts that we manage.
Wow.
Yeah, we have software. We have a software that we have used so long, and it's funny because their home office is in Paris, France, and a few years ago they sent a video team here to videotape because we're one of their largest accounts agency-wise. I mean, they have like Oreo cookie and they have like big brands, but as far as agencies, we're one of the largest.
Wow. So when you started, now I'm flashing back to the Grand Traverse Pie lunch that we had, and you've grown this over the 16 years. So if you were to tell someone that is listening to this, it's like, I can't even imagine doing that, but if she can do it, I can do it. Where does someone start? What advice do you give?
Well, one of the things I always give people advice now, so like I said, when I started this company, I thought it was just going to be me.
Yeah.
So I didn't have like processes and systems. And then all at once I started bringing on, employees and interns and stuff like that. So I've had to, over the years, develop systems. And I have this really colorful sheet that has like all of my accounts and all of Austin's accounts and all of Clayton's accounts. And it's color coded yellow and blue and green. And it's so funny because every time I hire someone new, I say, okay, this is a sheet we have used literally for 16 years. That's literally the sheet I had way back 16 years ago when I had just 1099 employees. And every time I'm like, if you can think of a better way to do that, and they're all like, no, this is great. So we're using that. So Austin and I, Austin's been with me 7 years, and we go back, and I've saved all of those sheets in our files, and we can go back and look at it, and it's just funny, some of the clients that we've had over the years. It's very, very interesting, all the different, because we've really never, early on someone told me that, oh, you need to niche and just do doctors or just do dentists or financial planners or HVAC or something like that. And it probably would have financially made more sense to just niche into one area, but it also sounds incredibly boring.
Yeah.
So we have everything. We have a speed skating school that we've worked with. I think it's going on 4 years.
Wow.
We have doctors and dentists and county fairs and, pumpkin patches.
And all
the only thing that we
all over the country, right, Dawn? Not because just so
Yes.
everyone who's listening, because people all over the world listen to this, which always blows my mind when I look at my stats. I'm like, who's listening?
Oh,
to
I
this?
bet.
Japan, but okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Dawn's in Kalamazoo, Michigan with me, so if that's not obvious, just in case. But your clients are all over.
Yep, we've had clients in Canada before. We don't currently have one. We're looking at bringing one on next year. I have a gentleman from Nigeria actually who is opening a cleaning business in Canada. So I would say right now probably 75 to 80% of our clients are in the West Michigan area. But yeah, we have accounts in New Jersey, Massachusetts, North Carolina. I have 2 accounts in Florida. We've had accounts probably in at least half of the states.
That's really cool. What in terms of social media trends? Because when you started, it was what, Facebook? Was that about
Twitter?
Twitter. And
Yeah.
so then
I refuse to call it X.
yeah, yeah. And then,
Yeah, I
LinkedIn's
refuse.
coming of age, and then Instagram, and now TikTok. So how do you, and I'm sure I'm missing a bunch, but those are the big ones, right? So, and YouTube, how do you stay on top, you and your team stay on top of the trends?
I have quite a few over the years. I've developed quite a few friendships with people in the social media space. And so we do a lot of research and a lot of really diving in and finding out what's the truth and what's the not true. And that's something that I feel like it's kind of our agency's claim to fame is we don't jump on trends. We don't, because it's one of those things where you just don't know really what's factual. I follow a marketer. His name is Gary Vaynerchuk, and he has VaynerMedia in New York City, and they do what we do on a level for Pepsi, Toyota, Nike, much higher. And one of the things that he always gives the advice is it's like you have to do what works for your clients and what works for you. And just because everybody's doing it doesn't mean that you need to do it. And that's one thing I've looked at. Like we've had clients come to us and like, hey, I think I need to be on TikTok, and it's like, no. I tell people it's good to have a platform there. So like if somebody wants to tag you and something like that, but it's just sometimes it's just not a one size fits all. The only thing that we recommend for people is that we call it like the top 4 or 5, and that you get Facebook, you get Instagram, you get LinkedIn for your personal and for the business, and then Google, and then we add like YouTube. But those are the ones that we really look at. That those are places that you need to invest time and you need to invest money and energy in. But TikTok has just been such a volatile thing. But we do have a couple of accounts. And one of the things that's interesting, and I didn't realize it until we started talking to a new client that has a product. I would say well over 80% of our clients are service-based clients. We really don't have like products.
Yeah, and that's what my daughter was telling me about TikTok, how they're selling all kinds of products on.
Oh yeah, there's probably something on my porch right now from TikTok for my 73-year-old brother.
Do you mind me asking what it is?
He has a cat. So when he retired, he got this cat, and this cat is like his entire world. So the other day he came over and he ordered one of those stainless steel water bowls and a little brush and a little like pop-up tent for him. Yeah.
And
But he's ordered, yeah.
And you got that off TikTok?
He's ordered, like he likes to collect like pocket knives, and he's ordered, yeah. But he just kind of, he finally got off of Facebook because he just couldn't stand the gossipy and the nonsense, and
Yeah.
and so so he's just strictly TikTok. And when TikTok went down for that 24-hour period, he was freaking out. But he loves it, and he's got his, the thing with TikTok is it's like once you start, consuming content, it's very quick about narrowing down what you're going to see.
Yeah.
Which in some ways is good, in some ways is bad.
Right. Well, yeah.
Because once you get pigeonholed, then it's like if you have to start looking at other stuff.
Yes, I know. Because even on my Instagram, is it my Instagram or maybe my Facebook? I can't remember. That'll happen. It's like all I see is like, because I quit drinking 5 years ago. So it's like these sober influencers. And I'm like,
yeah,
like, oh my God, I'm on a sober over. I get it.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
I love it that people are quitting drinking with the same sense. I'm like, can I look at some cute dog or cat videos? I don't know. So
yeah. And it's interesting that you say that, because I don't know if you knew or if we've even talked. I decided for 2025 that I was not going to drink.
We talked about that a few months ago, but how are you doing? Because it's almost September. So you were like 8 months into this. How are you feeling?
Yeah. Great. And it is, I will say it's still kind of a little awkward, like when I go to a Barrels, Bottles and Brews or a networking event. It still feels a little awkward, but not as much as in the beginning. I've never been a big drinker, and I don't, like you, I don't have a drinking problem, I would say, but it's just one of those things where it's like I did some research, and a couple other people have brought it up to me, and when they talked about like after you, like once you drink and then like for days it affects you.
It does.
And it was like that was an eye opener to me. And I have gigantic goals for this year. I'm looking at somewhat transitioning out of the business, and I have someone in mind, and we've been in talks about buying out the company. Not right away. I love what I do. But so we've been in talks of that, and it just really, I really wanted to focus. So I've heard you talk about it, and I just really did, and you talk about the calories and the sugar and all that, and it just doesn't seem like a smart thing to do.
Yeah, when you and I were talking, you paid me such a high compliment that day, because you were talking about how you'd been kind of listening to the work I've been doing in this space, and but one, it just was so touching, and two, I love seeing when people step in and just say, I'm going to try this on. And I love what you're saying. It doesn't have to be a problem in our lives. The thing is, for me, it was a problem for me in the sense that I just didn't like my relationship with alcohol. So,
right.
And regardless if you drink, let's say you drink once a month and you don't like doing that's okay. It doesn't have to be what our culture has conditioned us to think it is. Some homeless person with a brown paper bag under a bridge. That is not it.
No.
So,
no, when I had growing up, I had a stepdad who had a really bad drinking problem. And then we talked about, I have a couple ex-husbands that, had drinking problems, and it was just one of those things where, and that was not me either. I mean, I probably drank maybe once or twice a month at most. And it was never more than, one drink, because I always joke and say I'm one of those people, like I drink like $35 drinks. I was, like if I'm going to have a drink, it was bourbon, and it was this, the stuff they had to reach up in the top shelf and get. And so a couple of my employees used to laugh at me because, I'd have one drink, but it was $35.
Yeah.
But I would rather have one $35 drink than 4 of your $10 drinks.
Exactly. So tell me the difference you're feeling now, not what you're feeling, but the results you're seeing, because you have these big goals. You have 4 months left of 2025. What have you noticed differently about yourself in terms of the results of living alcohol-free?
I've really been transitioning into tracking everything. And so every month we have a meeting and we talk about what clients we've lost and what clients we've gained and those types of things. And so 40% of our current book of business came in 2025.
Well, there it is. Oh my gosh, that gives me chills.
Isn't that crazy?
It is. Now I'm going to ask, just hearing that part alone.
Yeah.
Have you given thought to 2026 if alcohol is going to be back on the menu, or are you maybe I'm done?
Yeah, I think I'm done. It's like when you really research it, and that's what I encourage people to do, because I promise you, I had zero problem with it. Yeah. I didn't, and I'm not against people who did, because I think it's awesome when people recognize, I was engaged to a guy from Grand Rapids who had a problem. He went to AA meetings at least one a day. Sometimes you would go to 2 meetings a day, and once a month I would go with him. And they would talk about these people that had 16 DUIs, and this one guy had killed 2 people, and this stuff. And I'm so I never considered myself that problem, but I feel and I sympathize for those people about, that. But it was just one of those things where it's why am I doing it?
Yeah. Well, it's
and it's also one of those things too is my husband sings Southern gospel music. And so a lot of times we're in situations, and I had a pastor say to me one time, he's like, what happens if someone sees you in church on Sunday and then they see you Wednesday night at a restaurant and you're having a drink, and they have a drinking problem, you don't, but they see you and it makes them stumble.
Yeah.
And that was one I had some issues with, because it's I live my own life type of thing. And so I wrestled with it for a while, but is it really worth making someone stumble? There's no good reason to drink.
Yeah. Well, and then you look at just the science behind it, and it is a known carcinogen. So just for, if people aren't aware, 1 bottle of wine is the equivalent to smoking 10 cigarettes.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Crazy. And it's ethanol. Alcohol is ethanol. That's what we put in our vehicles to go. If you were to drink pure ethanol, you would die. And so, I can get on my soapbox about this. It is, and it's the only thing, and it's a drug, but somehow great marketing, they are able to separate alcohol out from drugs, but it's the only known drug to break the blood-brain barrier. There was a lot of B's in there, so I had to speak slowly, but
yeah, and that's it. Like I said, I've listened to you speak, and really, and I'm a big one for doing my own research, and it just was I just see no reason for it at all. And you think about about the people in my life who have had problems, and the problems that has caused for me and my siblings and my children. And it's just really, if you really stop and think about it, there's really not a good reason.
No, it's just that we're culturally conditioned that way.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
tell me, Dawn, because we talk about women in the podcast, but I want to know who the women in your life are that have really shaped the woman that sits before me today. Who are those women in your life?
My mom, I was the youngest of 6 kids in a blended family, and my mom told me every single day, I love you, you're beautiful, you're smart, you're funny, you can do anything you want to do. And so that's probably where it started. And then, I look through my life, and there was, a lot of people were just small influences. I had another lady that my mom died 23 years ago. And so other people have stepped up into my life, and I always say that, that God sent these angels into my life, because once, especially as a woman, I felt like once my mom was gone, it was kind of like there was a little bit of lostness. Like I didn't have
Yes.
somebody to go to. And so I had other people. And then I would probably say Jackie Jennings Carter.
Yeah.
She was one of the very first people that I met when I came to Kalamazoo. She actually, we worked together with her product for years and years and years, and then she kind of went in a different direction, and she called me like 3 days ago, and we talked, and and we're gonna get together for lunch and stuff like that. But she is somebody that she's not gonna put up with anyone's crap, and she taught me a lot about that, to really understand that it is what it is. Another person, and it's probably a story for another day, but I went through a situation and actually placed a baby for adoption. And the people that adopted him, that woman has shown me a lot of grace and a lot of mercy, because he is 19 years old, and I can tell you that not more than a month or two has ever gone by without him in my life. And so, yeah, I've went on vacation with them. He's went on vacation with us. He calls my children, his brother and sisters.
Wow.
And but she, at any point there's never a contract where it's like they have to allow me to be into his life.
Right.
But it's something that they've always done, and they encourage it. He went to Kalamazoo Christian. I went to every one of his soccer games, every one of his basketball games. I went to when he became an Eagle Scout. So it's just kind of a neat thing that for somebody to do something that didn't have to.
Yeah. Wow, what a powerful part of your life story, and how you were able to foster this amazing relationship with the woman who raised your biological child. Oh my gosh. I mean, for both of you, that is really cool, Dawn.
Isn't that a cool story? Yep. And it's one of those things I didn't really plan on talking about it today, but it's something that I found myself in a marriage that was really bad from day one, just really bad. And 25 days into the marriage, he had already moved out. We had already decided, and I found out I was pregnant.
Yeah.
And
wow.
it was something that that you look back on and you think, okay, that shaped a lot. But I think about that a lot, because that's like something that they didn't have to do. The parents didn't have to allow me to be, but he his brother got married, and we were at the wedding, and it's just a really neat thing.
It really is. It really is. It's really, and thank you for sharing that with me and anyone who listens to this, because here's what that does. And I like to talk about this a lot too. I usually talk about when it comes to alcohol, but anything in general, this could bring up a lot of shame. And when we talk about things like this, other people have gone through this too, and they feel like they're not alone. And for you to share that story takes the shame out of this. Like, it just shows what a great human being you are. And
it's not easy. I will tell you, there's been times, it's like sometimes on his birthday or Christmas or something like that. But it's like, all you gotta do is I just text him. We go to dinner, we go to lunch, and it's really a cool thing. But I remember not too long after it, I had somebody I knew come up to me in the grocery store, and she said to me, she goes, "Wow, I heard what you did." She goes, "I love my kids too much to give them away." And it was like, lady, you have no idea the amount of love it takes to allow somebody else for them to be in somebody else's life, to give them a better life.
Yeah.
And it was that just really showed me that it's like she has no clue.
Yeah, and that's the word ignorant, and not meant as a dig. Ignorance just means, because that word's been weaponized a lot, you just don't know.
Yeah.
And so and very ballsy for this person to say this.
Oh yeah.
Like,
I know. It was
cornflakes and milk and leave the grocery store.
Yeah. And that's, like I said, it's funny because the people, like, every now and then I'll run into somebody I went to high school with. And when I was in high school, I was super shy. I know, again, a shocker. But probably from my freshman year to my senior year, I said 12 words.
Wow.
I was super shy. And so people see me now and it's like, wow. When I was in the insurance business, I went through a interview process. There was a panel of 7 people, and I had to take the Strength Finders test.
Yeah.
And it came back that my second superpower was communication. So I haven't shut up since. But I'm the youngest of 6 kids, so I mean it was always like, be quiet, I could just never, and I just kind of lived in my own little world. And when they told me that, it was so empowering to me to realize that that communication is something I'm good at. And I dove 100% into that book, because it's like I have weaknesses that for my whole life, it's like I was working on these weaknesses, and then I just realized they're a weakness for a reason. And why? I mean,
Focus on the strengths.
mm-hmm,
Focus on
mm-hmm.
strengths. Speaking about empowered, Dawn and Stony Creek Social Media sponsored my inaugural Empower Her conference this last March, and Dawn was there. And
That
so
was
I'd like to
amazing.
thank you. Number
Oh,
one,
you're
thank you
welcome.
for supporting the conference,
Oh, you're
and
welcome.
stepping up and doing that. It meant a lot to me, and for coming and being a part of it. And I'm bringing it back next year. So,
Oh, I'm super excited.
and I appreciate the support, because you're really involved at a community level. Like servant leadership to me seems like we haven't talked about it specifically, but you definitely are in that space. You're highly involved in the Kalamazoo Business Network and what that is.
Mm-hmm.
So tell everyone, especially who's not from Kalamazoo, who's listening to this, like what KBN is for the business community in Kalamazoo.
Well, Jay Russenholtz interviewed me for it way back during COVID and talked about it, and it was really it was created for business owners to really have a space that was private, and we were able to connect with each other on a business level and say, hey, who is the best at snow plowing, or who do you use as a CPA, and those types of things, and just putting out what's really going on. And we've really now I'm on the admin committee, and we're really trying to get people to it's became like the wild west, where people were I just deleted and blocked someone yesterday, so it's out there. It's somebody who in the last 30 days had tried to post 65 times
To sell their product.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
really
and
it's
so
meant to like connect business owners, and
mm-hmm,
to your point, snow removal, CPA, whatever. And that's where I went on and I posted about I'm looking for sponsors for this women's conference I'm putting on in Kalamazoo, because it was really important to me to host this conference in my hometown. And you stepped
mm-hmm,
up and said, Tony, send me the information. And I
mm-hmm,
actually had a few sponsors come from just that post. So I'm not
mm-hmm.
the one that's blocked everyone, by the way. I use
No,
it
no.
correctly.
Right, yeah, but there's Mandy Taylor, and then Barry Gray, Jay Russenholt, and myself. And I just put a text out to them and said, hey, I'm going to do a post and just say, if you are one of those serial, entrepreneurs who are posting every day, 2 or 3 times a day, because that has to go through the admin process. So I'm having to sort through these people that are, and so I think that people let's just keep shooting it out there until they deny it. And I thought, I'm not going to filter your nonsense. If you're not, because we have clients that we post in groups for, but we know we have a chart that says, okay, in this group you're allowed to post once a week, and this, and so we honor those rules.
Yes.
And these people aren't. They're just, they're just sending it. And like I said, that one, I just had to. I said, you're done. I said, trying to post 65, because our rule is you can post about your business once a week.
Yeah.
Which I think is fair.
Yeah.
But these people were posting, that one I saw for 65 posts, and I thought, nope. So I just removed them from the group and blocked them. Yeah, it's like, we're all grown-ups. And I just got tired of filtering people's nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I deleted 2 of them this week.
Well, good.
And
Well,
you're done.
yeah, follow the rules. And I love how you volunteer your time to do this, because, by the way, I posted in the group when I was looking for a car detailer, and I got one. And then social media, and everyone on there, I'm looking for social media expert. Everyone put you down. And I'm like, well, I know
Yeah.
who Dawn is. And so I
Yeah.
thought that was really cool. I mean, you have a lot of
It is.
these, not just because you volunteer your time, but because you've built this phenomenal business in
Mm-hmm.
Kalamazoo that's women owned,
Yeah.
and it's just super
Yeah.
cool. So I
Yeah.
want to shift gears a little bit and ask you, like, are you reading any books or listening to any podcasts?
I listen to audiobooks. I'm actually thinking of, of getting into the podcast. Well, I'll just give you a little window into what my September is going to look like. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
So, I have an employee that's been with me 3 years that's getting out of marketing and he's going into financial planning. Well, he is leaving September 15th is his last day. Okay. So I brought in a new young man that's been volunteering on or coming in on Fridays. He's working his other job Monday through Thursday, and he's coming here on Fridays. They were just here. He starts September 12th.
Okay.
So Clay's leaving the 15th. Clayton is coming September 12th.
Yeah.
I have two other employees, Natalie and Austin. And on September 9th, oh, my little fingers did that. September, yeah, that's for them. September 19th, they're getting married to each other.
Oh, are you going to the
And
wedding?
going on a, yes, and go, I better, I'm the one that introduced them. They met at the Stony Creek.
Oh, and you're a matchmaker. This could
I know,
be
to add that.
business for you.
Yep. Well, that's what Clay's jokes and says. He goes, Dawn didn't find me a wife, so I'm leaving. But so for 2 weeks when they're on their honeymoon, it's going to be me and then Clayton, who just started on the 12th, and Medina. We have an incredible intern from Western.
Yeah.
And then Tuesday, I'm meeting with another intern.
Okay.
So yeah, it's going to be for 2 weeks. It's going to be me and a couple interns and a newbie.
Well, I tell you, and you're looking at so with this business transition that you're prepping for, is this like moving to retirement? Is that the goal, or are you starting a new business?
No, I don't think I'll ever retire. My husband always jokes about it. So it's going to be something, I mean, we're talking like a 10-year process. I mean,
Okay.
it's not like I'm going to be stepping out
Okay.
anytime soon. But so I will probably, I love marketing. I love helping people. So it's something that I'll probably still do it on somewhat of a consultant basis because there's so much to learn. And I tell people, I just had, two new clients that came on last week, and I told them, it's what we do is not really, in essence, rocket science, but it's something that most people don't have the time to do it properly themselves.
Right. Right. Well, that's why I say about sports sales. This isn't rocket science. We're selling tickets. It's really just about creating the processes that you're talking about, to make it streamlined, and and then market it to people that want to come to hockey games or look for sports entertainment. Yeah, it's not rocket science, but we do.
But there's a lot of science to it, though. When we're talking about selling this widget or this service or that product, you have to be able to get into the mind of the consumer that's gonna buy it.
Exactly, because you're help marketing all these different types of products because you decided not to niche down, which, by the way, I want to hit on that because I think that's really smart business advice, and it's so counterintuitive because if you go to business school, it's always niche, niche, niche. Well, you don't have to do it that way, and you're proof of that.
Right. Yep. And one of the things that I like about it is we're able to, because some of the very first clients I had out of the gate were hunters. And I'm not a hunter. I never hunt. I grew up in a small inland lake, so I did my share of fishing, but I've never shot an animal or anything like that. But that's somehow I got roped into that, but it was like, the marketing, I was working with this guy and I hadn't met him. He was out of the Detroit area. It was a referral, and I finally met him at an event where everyone was in camouflage but me. Yeah. And so it was like, what am I gonna do? And but so his buddies were like, so she's the one that's doing your marketing. But I was able to dumb it down enough. Like sometimes people are so close to the forest they can't see the trees.
Yep.
So they're talking in analogies or acronyms or whatever, and then they can't understand it, where I was able to get really into that mind of that person who's maybe just starting out. And So, and it's the same thing with all of the companies that we work with. We're able to look at it from the outside looking in, which is the customer's vantage point. I mean, a lot of them, like when they're going to buy a new kitchen, they don't know anything about the process. They know nothing about, should I get ceramic tile, or should I get this, or should I get that? All these different things, and they don't know. So we're able to take what the business wants to say and translate it into a language they want to hear.
Yeah. It is a science. You're absolutely right. We could keep talking all day, but we got
I
to
know.
wrap this up. So if people are interested in working with you or learning more about you in general, where can they find you, Dawn?
Our website, stonycreeksocialmedia.com. We're on, of course, all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We even have a few little TikToks out there. On my personal TikTok is when I got to ride the Zamboni.
That's right. You told me that. And you got a lot of views on that.
I did. I think it was like 8. I think that one might be up over 1,000 now. That's awesome. Yeah. I've always wanted to ride the Zamboni, and I always thought only kids could do it. And then I remember talking to TJ Scott.
Yep.
And he was like, grown-ups can do it. I'm like, what?
Yep.
So it was so fun. I felt like Miss America out there. I'm waving. All the little kids are waving at me. It was fun.
I'm so glad you got to do that. And I'll be seeing you this season because Dawn's husband, Joe, sings the national anthem for us periodically. And they're big K-Wing supporters. And I love that. So thank you.
Big hockey.
Yeah.
Big hockey. My new employee, I already broke him in and said, we're going to hockey games.
Let's do it. We're opening up in 6 weeks, so.
Yep. We'll be there. You know that.
I do. Well, thank you for coming on and sharing.
Thank you for having me.
Being an amazing woman in my life.
Fun.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And if you all are looking to connect with me, I'm not hard to find. The hockey side of my life is at kwings.com. And then anything related to my book coming out, my podcast, my TEDx, my coaching services is all at tonywill.com. And then I'm only on 3 social platforms, as I mentioned, LinkedIn and Facebook at Tony Lentini Will, and Instagram at I'm Tony Will. And until next time.